Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college sports fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring. You're not Clay Hall. I do that bit every time.
Sure, yeah.
You're Double D, Double
D,
Danger,
Double Down,
Double Down, Double Danger, Double Down. Dillon Davis from DellGazette.com, Delaware Gazette, covers Ohio State extensively.
Yes.
For the DellGazette.com, Delaware Gazette. Go ahead. You were going to make a point.
Very important that you market this to the world right now, given how many people from outside of the country are in the country right now. Maybe they stumble across the Tim May Show. So.
Yeah, maybe they stumble across the Dell Gazette.
There you go. Yeah.
DellGazette.com.
Great.
I mean,
creating some international Buckeye fans.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. People do. I mean, people do watch this. Believe it or not, across the nation and around the world. It's pretty funny. As Ross Bjork pointed out, at what? 125 million? No, 12 million.
12 million fans.
12 million Ohio State fans out there.
He said there's some data to back that up.
And you get 1% of those given to the fund.
Yep.
Instead of what he said, 20,000 maybe are given now, but if you get 120,000, 25 given 120,000, joining in the fundraising aspect of things, boy, could you go places.
Absolutely.
I used to call that back when John Cooper got his job, and the first couple of years were kind of rocky. Actually, several of the years were kind of rocky. I wrote a column one time, man, if everybody involved with Ohio State started rowing the boat in the same direction, wow, what a galleon you'd have, man, right?
Yeah, we're talking about 1% of that 12 million,
Yeah.
So.
But it's crazy. That's a crazy number, but I believe it because I had people walking up to me at Shinnecock Hills last week who recognized me, but I've been around forever.
Everybody recognizes you.
Yeah. And, it's funny. A lot of them don't recognize me till I say something. And then they go, hey.
It's the voice. That's what I've said. If they don't recognize your face, if you start talking, they're going to recognize you everywhere we go.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think it's an awesome thing.
But the bottom line is, that sounds like I'm not bragging. I'm not doing anything. I'm just pointing out facts.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, we got to spend almost an hour with Ross Bjork today. Me, you, and about 30 of our best buddies at the Jack Nicklaus Museum, the meeting room at the Jack Nicklaus Museum. I always say the Jack Nicklaus Museum never has more traffic than when they have a press conference.
So that was my first foray into that whole setting, nice little intimate setting as a press conference room. I know I heard about 6 different people talk about the last time they were in there was the famous Gordon Gee.
That was there. I mean, I asked Gordon Gee the famous question of
oh, you asked that?
Based on everything that has been delineated here, I think based on Jim Trustle's contract, you have the right to dismiss him. Did you consider dismissing him? And where he said, basically, are you kidding me? I just hope he doesn't dismiss me.
Legendary.
That was unbelievable. That press conference was supposed to last about 14 minutes, 12 minutes, and it lasted pretty much an hour. I'm talking about the one back then, and they just sort of by word sort of kept digging a hole.
Yeah, those comments last a lifetime. They're still enduring today. So.
Yeah, but lo and behold, Jim Trustle's going to have his name added to the Ring of Honor, which I think is tremendously deserving.
Yeah,
Ross Bjork, man, I like the way nobody ever loves athletic directors. My famous line: athletic directors and commissioners of conferences are both guaranteed to be booed whenever they're introduced, even to their own clientele. Sure. For the most part. But he sat there and, took all of our questions. Some of his answers, obviously, you can't answer something that doesn't have an answer right now. But for example, I was asking about what he'd like to see more than anything else come out of this bill that's been floating floating. It's headed downstream now. We'll see if in fact it gets approved. I mean, brought by Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell, a Republican and Democrat. What do you call that when two people bipartisan bill to fix college athletics, to save college athletics.
Save, it's more like it.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can get into a conversation about it. I've said this many times on this show and even on radio. How can you even get to a conversation, much less writing a bill, when you didn't even take really into account the Big Ten or the Southeastern Conference's views on it? Yeah. And as we all know, the Southeastern Conference rolls from Texas to South Carolina and down to Florida and up to Kentucky.
Yep.
That's their footprint.
Missouri, yep.
And then in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And then the Big Ten Conference goes from sea to shining sea.
It truly does.
With 18 teams.
Yeah.
I think they're in it with 20 before too long. That's the reason I asked him about there's now going to be, based on the bill as it's sort of like being circulated right now, they would put a quietus on big conference expansion.
Right, yeah.
Which I don't even understand why you would. How can you do that? But it's trying to not level the playing field, but to get a playing field.
Yeah.
This is the way it works. But are you going to have to get an amendment to the Constitution to then add 2 teams to your?
Sure.
So there may be, the rush may be on right now, and I've said it for years, Dillon. I really truly believe when it all settles out, Notre Dame and North Carolina are going to be in the Big Ten. I may be wrong about one. I don't think I'm wrong about the other, but I think you're going to have to partner up somehow, some way, and before this bill comes out, and how it could protect Notre Dame. There's some language, I guess, that supposedly right now that would protect Notre Dame as an independent. But why would that be part of a bill that saves college athletics? Saves it as what? As you knew it back in the 1970s?
Well, this bill, no matter what this bill looks like or what kind of shape it takes, like these conferences, these athletic directors, they're not gonna support anything that's protecting Notre Dame. They're not gonna go out of their way to protect Notre Dame. So ultimately, it doesn't matter, what's written in that. They're not going to support this.
No, I think it will matter if it's federal law. That's the point. If it's as the word that Ross Bjork used quite well was if it's codified.
Right, yeah.
If it's speeding,
True.
It's speeding. If it's breaking and entering, it's breaking and entering. If it's trying to add a team, and it's against the law, you're going to have to get your senators working overtime and your representatives. My point was, I think if the SEC and the Big Ten team members, and these are almost all state schools with a few exceptions, correct?
Yep.
With the exception of Vanderbilt and Northwestern. Who else that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. If those state schools flex their muscle with their senators and their reps, and believe me, their senators and reps understand the power of 70, 80, 100,000 seat stadiums and what that means. They're not going to do anything that necessarily their state school is not on board with, or the association their state school belongs with, meaning the Southeastern Conference or the Big Ten. Most of them are going to do the political correct thing and not do anything. Of course, they don't give a damn about that those schools belong to the NCAA. Right. A lot of these people don't. That's what's going on. That's what Ross was talking about when I asked him that question. Is right now, I'm paraphrasing what he was saying and adding to it, is that right now you have a lot of state laws dictating NIL rights, things like that. That's what, if it becomes a federal law, one set of guardrails, then that changes a lot of things, including transfer portal would be changed, obviously. We already know the 5 for 5, which means once your clock starts at the age of 19, you have 5 years to play college football. If it starts at 18 and you enroll, you have 5 years to play college football or college basketball, which is the way it used to be, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
But the point he's making is they've got to get out of this whirlpool, which is you come up with an idea, and as soon as you implement it, then it's challenged in court. There's an injunction. A guy's allowed to do this, that, and the other. That's why I was so fired up. And I even said this last week. I'm for players' rights, brother. I'm for players. I'm talking about big-time basketball and football players being paid. I'm for that. But I am not for this wild, wild west aspect of things. And that had to have a lasso put around it. And, of course, they're still dancing around and pretty much not going to, like, the other thing I asked him about contracts, making players in college athletics employees, a.k.a. contracts, because that's the way, if they become your employee, you can tell them what to do.
Right.
And you can either do that or go to the highway. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it doesn't look like that's going to be part of it. But the point is, like he said, he looked at his watch every 20, 30 minutes, every 2 or 3 days, something changes, right?
Yeah, he said that. I mean, obviously, they have to get out of this gray area where, like as you mentioned, everything can be challenged. Every time something happens, it's challengeable in court, and typically injunctions
Yeah,
happen.
because you make a rule, not a
Yeah,
law.
right. He said anybody's looking for in college sports right now is just some kind of clear direction. This is how things are. This is how it's governed. This
Yeah.
is what it's going to be, and then people can operate off of that. And obviously, they're so far from that right now, and I don't think they're particularly close to even getting to that point right now. To be honest with you, and then, but it was fascinating because everything, so many things about what Ross was asked today. As you mentioned, it's like it's a changing landscape. It's all fluid. It's evolving constantly. So it's hard to sit here and speak to some of these questions and say like, well, because if this happens, maybe this happens instead, or if this changes, and then we have to do this. And so many of his answers were, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. Like what does that look like? In 5 years, and then you have to kind of base your decisions off of that. So I came away from it just my head was kind of swimming, and I wonder like what does a day or a week in the life of Ross Bjork look like right now in
crazy.
this landscape? It's wild.
And also, how's your badminton team doing? They don't badminton. I just named one that wouldn't impugn anybody. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
I mean, you got in the, but he probably, I think when he was in here sitting right there back
Bjork
in the
chair?
spring or late winter, he talked about the fact that, heck, maybe 85, 90% of his job in some form or fashion is tied to fundraising anymore.
It is, yeah, sure it is.
But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Woody Hayes Athletic Center, some changes coming to that as soon as the funds are in the bank, so to speak, or promised to be in the bank. We're going to talk about Ohio Stadium, some things he talked about Ohio Stadium, which is, it's a constant, I wouldn't call it construction project. It's more like renovation, addition,
constant improvements,
project. But
that's life when you have a stadium over 100 years old.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about just the revenue sharing aspect of things. I mean, the pool this year that they're allowed to distribute or cut up among 4 sports is going to be $21.3 million. It was $20.5 million last year in the first implementation of that. Now it's a little more defined. Like he said, what was it? $2.5 million of that went toward scholarships or new scholarships from last year's total. Now the 21.5 can actually be revenue sharing. And of course, we all know a scholarship costs a lot of money at Ohio State anymore, but they have machinery in place to basically pay for scholarships. They've always had that going for them. I mean, that's what Ohio State has going for it that a lot of other schools don't have. And then just about where this could lead from the standpoint of, are we heading pell-mell toward a super conference? I don't think we are. Federal law would almost keep that from happening if, in fact, this bill passes and gets signed by the President of the United States of America. If it passes, it may preclude big time the idea of two big mega conferences becoming a super conference. Or would it be 2 super conferences becoming a mega conference? Which one's bigger, super or mega?
I think mega's bigger. I think you kind of already have 2 super conferences now that are driving everything, and now I think it becomes a mega conference.
Yeah, that's why I ran it through. Ran it through the jury here, to get it. But one other thing, before we talk about those subjects, was there anything else in what Ross? I was going to play you some highlights or some sound from that, but I left my adapter for my. I'm just going to, truth in advertise, left my adapter for my video micro SD card, where it ought to be at home.
Yeah.
Right. Should have one here. Yeah. I don't know why we don't.
You but just have one permanently here.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'd still have to be looking through there, finding that salient soundbite like TV. But was there anything else there before we talk about those things? I definitely want to talk about the Woody Hayes Athletic Center expansion. And its expansion. That's a clear construction project that could be coming in the next several years. Is there anything that stood out to you about that conversation with Ross Bjork?
No, I mean, certainly the Woody Hayes, the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, that stuff where we actually got some concrete details on what that looks like, what it means, the cost.
I just preface with that. Don't repeat something. I asked you.
I know, but I'm saying
Clay Hall. I asked you to give me something new.
That's very obvious. But I mean, when you touched on like 80% of what we talked about, then it's hard for me to pick anything else and say that stood out. So no, nothing else. If you want to concrete, nothing else stood out. We're going to talk about everything that was primarily. I will say one thing, and this kind of leads into this other discussion about, super leagues is I really enjoyed Steve Hellwagon's question about other programs falling by the wayside.
Yeah.
And, if you want to talk about conferences moving towards a super league or a mega league, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe there's not support for that. But what's going to happen when these programs start to just fall further and further behind? They can't keep up with the cost of,
Yeah.
doing business at the level that they expect to or that they do now.
Yeah.
So, and that's interesting to me is that, maybe the appetite for a super league isn't truly there nationally, but in 10 more years when more and more programs are like, as Louisville started, as came out and said that they're operating in a deficit, and as more and more programs can't keep up, then by default, what does that mean for a lot of these teams that have these?
Rutgers is working
right.
in a ditch.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or not even a deficit. Ross,
$500 million. Are you kidding me?
Ross, said that, and obviously this is the the haves and the have-nots, truly. But Ross said that Ohio State's eventually, very soon, in short order, going to become the first athletic department to operate with a $500 million operating budget.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's truly at the top of the spec. They're at that one end of the spectrum. But for even these programs that are well underneath that, but still doing pretty solid for themselves.
Yeah.
These programs, a lot of these programs, these athletic departments can't keep up with that. When they fall by the wayside, what's left with that, and then what do you do with that? So yeah.
He kind of understood what I was asking him too about, what stood out, blah blah blah. The point about the bill, the point of the bill right now, which bothers me, is to go back to leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
With Ohio State, and no offense, Ball State, who they open with.
Sure.
That's not. I don't want to see that.
It's impossible. You can't level that field anyway. I mean,
Ball State finds a way to have a football team, just like Ohio U does, like Bowling Green, Eddie George up at Bowling Green.
Yep.
They know they're not working. They know they're not operating in the same realm. That doesn't mean they can't play football and beat Ohio State or Michigan or something.
But the longevity of a program.
But the point that we're talking about, it finally comes down to dollars. I mean, it's always about the dollars.
And you picked Ball State there, and we just talked about an in-conference member that is a perfect example. That Rutgers,
correct,
that resides within your conference.
But that's because Rutgers has probably reached higher than it should have.
Agreed. I totally agree.
I'm talking about reached as in, you're not there. You're not on par with Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State.
You're in over your head.
Or Oregon. Name a team almost other than Rutgers, right? You're not on par with them. You don't have their facilities wise. You're not on par. Fundraising wise, you're not on par. It's the State University of New Jersey. New Jersey's huge, population wise. Sure. And the reason I thought it always made sense to add Rutgers to the Big Ten if you're going to add anybody, only because of that New York footprint and stuff. But I mean, there's thousands of people living in New York City who are Ohio State grads. Sure. Yeah. Right on down the line. But I didn't think it would be bad for Ohio State to play there every several years and let their fans more like the convenience for Ohio State fans than Rutgers fans.
Yeah. To not have to travel to see about that game.
But the thing is, you have to understand, you don't necessarily have to have the world's greatest stadium or facilities to. You do need a good football team to turn things around financially, but you don't necessarily have to have the best of all things because, rosters are limited even to today. Rosters are limited, 105 people now, right, on rosters for football. And they all have to be on scholarship. But the point is, you don't have to necessarily have the best of everything. In my opinion, the greatest example of somebody embracing who they are, what they are, and running with it is Duke basketball. Mm-hmm. They play in Cameron Indoor Stadium. And I know they've made improvements to it and stuff, but it's still a tight little bandbox compared to the Dean Dome.
If you strip Cameron of all of its luster and prestige and said this was a Division II gym, I'd be like, that's a nice Division II gym, but it's a Division II gym.
Great example. And they're talking about replacing the Dean Dome over there in North Carolina. Doesn't seem like it's been there that long, in my lifetime. But the point is, you do with what you got and you build toward, and then you become an entity. Duke obviously became an entity in basketball in a big time way. It's like saying the sun is hot. Rutgers was on track there, and then Greg Schiano left. But they were building. Yeah. They were in the Big East at that point, and they were building. But then he left, and it teetered, and then it fell off the cliff.
Right.
And but like you're saying, but the point is, this what bothers me about this bill just a little bit. I've read about it. I've read some of the wording in it, but the wording seems to change day to day.
Yeah.
But they want to more go back to there are 131 teams in FBS football, and to think that you're going to come anywhere close to leveling Ohio State with, because I think this is a nice program, Appalachian State.
Sure.
I think Appalachian State has done it the right way.
Yeah.
They haven't overstepped, but they're in FBS. When they upset Michigan, they weren't.
Yeah.
But the point is, they're doing it the right way. And as Ross kind of pointed out, like when he was at Western Kentucky for a couple of years, they aspired. Yeah, first year of the FBS and even the BCS was along then.
Yeah,
they aspired to be. They were here. They aspired to be here, and that was their first year. They moved up from Division I AA or FCS, and but they didn't overstep.
Yeah,
you do have to make your place capable of hosting FBS quality.
Right. Yeah.
Games.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he said that, he was under no delusions as the athletic department there. Like, hey, they can market their program as a BCS program because they technically had access to it, but they operated under no delusions that they were truly able to go compete with the $20 million.
From a fundraising aspect or anything else. So like he said, he had a $21 million, $21 million budget. So, I think even back then, Ohio State's budget was probably 150, 180, 200 million.
Right.
It was big.
The
and keeps getting bigger.
That's an athletic director at a place like that, understanding that, like, hey, we cannot compete with this. So
the president,
why would there be any sort of motivation to try to level a playing field with programs that are never truly going to be level? It's just not. It's not doable. So
but even as Arkansas's athletic director commented, when they what's the name of the company that is now going to sponsor Razorback Stadium? It was named after a guy.
Something bank.
Now it's a credit union or credit.
Collective credit union, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, we don't need to advertise for them. We're always going to call it Razorback Stadium. Right?
Razorback Stadium.
But he said, their stadium seats 71,000. I've been there one time, just stopped on my way down to Texas. I took the circle route.
How's Fayetteville?
Huh?
How's Fayetteville?
I think Fayetteville's a nice college town, man. I like it. I think the stadium's nice.
I've always thought the stadium looked pretty nice. Yeah, I've never been there.
That's where Richard Nixon went in 1969 to witness, quote, the national championship game between Texas and Arkansas. Yeah. Frank Broyles versus Darrell Royal and James Street, with that famous after the score, and Texas beat Arkansas and won he declared them the national champion in the post-game locker room. Richard Nixon, the sitting president, and he sat in the stands.
See, presidents get involved in college football. It's a tale as old as time, baby.
Yeah, it is a tale of John F. Kennedy went to the Orange Bowl way back in the early '60s. Absolutely, Dutch Reagan. Ronald Reagan, whatever you want to call him, you can call him a two-term president, but he loved sports. And you know what? The reason you go to those is, number one, you like sports, and number two, a lot of voters.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of voters sitting out there. But, I think Nixon made a little bit of a faux pas, but he'd already been elected, of siding with one side or the other. You don't really want to do that. That's not a smart move. But the point is, that was like a 40,000 seat stadium back then, and it was big.
Yeah, sure. For 40, back then, 40,000. Sure.
It might not have been 40. They played like Alabama did forever. They played several of their games in Little Rock at I think it's called War Memorial Stadium back then. Yeah. But I remember, Alabama. I grew up an Alabama fan, and my dad took me and my older brother to home games, and I'm in at Tuscaloosa, but they only played like 3 or 4 home games a year. In Tuscaloosa, they played 3 or 4 more, depending on how many they had in Birmingham at Legion Field. Yeah. And we went to several games there, including, the Auburn game a couple of times, which was really cool because half the stadium, it's just like Texas, Oklahoma.
Sure.
Well, yeah, it would be funny if Ohio State played Michigan in Toledo and the Glass Bowl was 100,000 instead of.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Speaking of a Division I FBS school, Toledo, the Glass Bowl was 25,000 or was 100,000 instead of whatever it is, 25 or 30. So I like that stadium, by the way.
80, I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Even if it was 80, you can split that half and half with the Ohio State and Michigan fans. That would be that'd be quite.
Yeah, but my point, if you could split it, but but I digress. The bottom line is, you're never going to make things equal.
No.
And Here's the other thing about Ohio State and heading toward that $500 million budget down the road, maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years, as Ross points out. I forgot what it is this year. Isn't it right at 300?
I'm not entirely
maybe
sure.
a little more than that.
I don't want to misspeak. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak either. I just did, though. The point is, Ohio State has 36 varsity sports.
Yeah.
And I forgot how many actually are scholarshiped. Georgia has what, 19, 20, 21. Texas has what, 19, 20. Alabama, they're in that little around 20 range. They're not even, the athletic departments are not even equal.
Right.
In terms of scope. Several of the Big Ten schools have right there pushing 30 varsity sports, if not more than that. And so what are you going to do? What are we talking about when it comes to equality? What are we really talking about here? You're putting apples, oranges, pears, limes, and lemons,
sure,
and grapes, all in the same little deal. And the thing you're trying to keep is the grapes from getting crushed.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many different things that go into it that constantly kind of change the battlefield, so to speak, as well. Because we talked about the University of Michigan during this thing about how they've kind of reached into their endowments to put into the athletic department. How many universities can do that? And if you can't, then you're just you're just screwed. It's just not just money you don't have to operate.
You want to be part of a club that maybe you're not worthy of being.
Right.
Worthy. I'm talking about you don't have the wherewithal. I was at Shinnecock. Shinnecock Golf Club. I think it's Country Club. Shinnecock Hill, excuse me. Dude, they only have 300 members.
Right.
And the dues, I think the original dues when you join are 200,000. I think that's right. And then it's not that bad annually.
When you think about it, but yeah.
But here's the point: you have to be invited.
Right.
You have to be sponsored. You can't just go up and knock on the door and say, "I want to join Shinnecock Hills. Here's my cash."
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to college athletic programs or college athletics. You can't be Wake Forest and knock on the Big Ten's door and go, no slam, Will Pantages. If you've gotten this far in this podcast, no slam to you, where you worked the last several years before you became the football sports information director at Ohio State. By the way, I think he's doing a hell of a job.
He's I know his head's been swimming and he's trying to.
But I think he's still maybe swimming. He's doing a hell of a job while he's swimming. He's taking breaths.
Things have been pretty solid. So
he's doing the freestyle. But yeah, do you agree, right? I mean, that's
and that's I think what the point you're trying to make, and I agree, and I think this is kind of what it all boils down to me is you're never going to be able to create a model that just eliminates inequity in college sports.
Correct.
There's just inequity is just always going to be.
You cannot build that extension onto the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You are denied.
Sure. I mean, that's
not going to happen.
About people saying you can't do this because others can. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
We talk about all these injunctions and these court orders and taking legal avenues to get things done. You can't tell programs that they can't do these things that will give them an inherent advantage over their peers because other programs can't do that. It's just you're not going to be able to do that, and so there's always going to be an element of inequity in college sports. And I just don't. For all these models we talk about and what happens if this happens and all these things, the bottom line is it's going to be the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Ohio State fans will be more than happy to know, and they already know that they're always going to be at the top of the haves.
Whatever it is, they're going to be in that upper echelon, the elite area, because. And like Ross was saying, 12 million Ohio State fans sort of documented or bona fide, put you in another realm, right?
Sure.
Just like you're talking about. But here's the case. I mean, it's like Chicago, Jay Burwinger won the first Heisman Trophy. They gave up football 4 or 5 years later, or big time football.
Mm-hmm.
They were original member of I don't know if original, but they were part of the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah.
And they said, you know what? Tail wagging the dog. We don't want this, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And they got out. I remember when Ohio State in 1961, they have that banner up of being a national champion. I dispute that for all kinds of reasons.
For 60,
for 61. Yeah. But the faculty, whatever it was, voted not to let them go to the Rose Bowl, because they were worried about football wagging the dog. Can you imagine any kind of thought like that?
No, I mean,
But my point is, there have been efforts over the years by many institutions to kind of get a hold of what they saw as this building up Stampede,
this blossoming monster,
and they've basically failed
Yeah.
because the fans, the alumni, the present students want to see big time college football at their respective school, and they yearn for it. Look at Indiana right now. They didn't resurrect the football program. It was never erect.
No, yeah.
I mean, in the sense of what it is now.
They built one overnight, pretty much,
Yeah, but Kurt Cignetti, what he did, Kurt Cignetti just said, I didn't come here to maintain.
Right.
I didn't come here to get us to the Copper Bowl.
Yeah.
I came here to win it all.
You talk about schools trying to, rein that
Aspire.
in.
But here's the thing. How many other schools are out there right now that aren't in the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference that aspire to be on that level or are trying to get there? I mean, there are several. And there are several in the Big Ten. Well, a couple, maybe. I think we're just glad to be in the Big Ten. Sure. That if you really, like British, whatever they call it, EPL, if you really took it and relegated.
The relegation system, yeah.
You went the relegation system, a couple, three would be probably dropped because the efforts have been there, but not on the level of an Ohio State, a Michigan, an Oregon, an Iowa.
You mean
Penn
efforts,
State.
Like investment?
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
A lot of word of mouth, but not a lot of action in some places. I'm not going to name them, but I thought that way forever about Indiana until this guy shows up and says, and not just him, he had backers. I mean, they got into the NIL deal, not as wholesale as some people were saying after their national championship last year, but they got into the NIL deal in a big way, and they got into talent perusal in a big way, and they put together a team, and I think they still have a team that can compete this year. It's going to be interesting.
Agreed. Indiana's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a one-off case, but because they had the donor backing, they had the money to be able to throw at it.
They mustered it.
Yeah. But having a Mark Cuban kind of guy, that's that style of guy right there, just to be like, hey, Cubes, like.
But they mustered him.
So, sure.
They got him involved.
But I guess I look at programs like what Illinois has done to invest in their football program as of late, and those are the kind of things we're lacking. Those are the kind of things when you look back at the state of the Big Ten, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and said, why is Ohio State sharing money with these programs who refuse to turn it around and put it back into their football program? Now you're seeing in Illinois, start to invest and make stadium changes and things like that, and that's great to see. There are still programs in the Big Ten that aren't doing that. And you talk about relegation, absolutely. If they went by the wayside tomorrow, the Big Ten is better for it. Not even just less or stand pat. They are better for it.
Yeah.
And we know
the core would be stronger because there would be less of the
of
the electrons flowing around. There'd be more neutrinos and protons.
I'll make this comment real quick.
Neutrons and protons.
I'm not sure if there's a natural part of the show that we'll get to talk about this, but I found it interesting. Ross Bjork mentioned, I think it was talking about just what the schedule looks like, because there's a lot of talk about a changing schedule, maybe having a 2-season thing. So, and Ross made the comment about, the talks of maybe kind of regionalizing scheduling. And I kind of scoffed at that and laughed at that because the Big Ten has put themselves into a situation where you can't regionalize scheduling when there's only 4 teams. He talked about, teams traveling out west, and the West teams traveling out east. When there's only 4 teams out there, you can't regionalize the conference. You've made that bed. Now you have to lie in it. So
but you got Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota sitting there, almost halfway compared to Rutgers.
Yeah. It would still be the longest trip that I think anybody in a conference has to make. So I guess, in that sense, I kind of scoffed.
But let me interrupt. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
but here's the thing, what you have to keep in mind, folks who made a big deal about that. Ohio State's only going to go out there every other year, or maybe once a year. They're not playing. They're not like Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC
all on the same schedule,
playing half of their schedule on big time road trips.
Well, you've looked at it the last 4 years. They're doing one each. Right? They went to Oregon.
That's the price they pay. Yeah.
Go out to LA this year and then go out to LA next year for the UCLA.
Yeah, but that's the price you pay if you want to be part of the Big Ten, But I thought that was interesting. But you want to see that. I want to see the crossover games.
Of course you do.
You want to see Ohio State and USC.
Yeah, that's going to be
that's history right there.
Ohio State goes to LA in late October this year. That's going to be a big time thing. Obviously we haven't seen it since 2008 in the first place, and then obviously just those 2 uniforms on the field. Of course you do. Just real quick about that though. It also feeds into what we talk about when eventually as we continue to progress and this continues to evolve, programs are going to fall by the wayside. That's a big element of it. You talk about programs that are already operating in a deficit or very close to doing so. the travel budgets are just these programs aren't going to be able to keep up with. These athletic departments aren't going to be able to keep up with. And that's another reason it's just going to continue to push the have-nots further away from these programs that can like Ohio State that are self-sustaining.
Get airline sponsorship.
Well,
we fly United, we fly Delta, we fly
Washington has the Alaska
Frontier.
Airlines. Yeah, Washington has Alaska Airlines.
We fly Spirit. Oops.
Oh, so sorry about that one.
Yeah, maybe they could use those Spirit planes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just probably sitting there in mothballs out in Arizona somewhere.
A little repurposing.
Yeah, but anyway, but that's the point. Yeah. The point is they wanted to join.
Sure.
Believe me, it's no hop, skip, and a jump from Austin to Athens, Georgia,
to
either.
To Gainesville, Florida. Yeah.
Or to Gainesville, Florida.
Yeah.
But it is shorter by like maybe an hour or an hour and a half. But
sure. That's true.
But the point is
I digress.
That's the bed. Yeah. They made their own bed in terms of the breadth of the Big Ten, but it gives them nationwide panache.
Sure.
There's no other conference with that in terms of you can go
coast to coast,
whatever Saturday it is in October. Is it October? Yeah. You can go whatever Saturday it is in October to LA Coliseum and see Ohio State play.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
There are probably of the 12 million, there may be 2 or 3 million within driving distance of Ohio State fans.
Yep. There will be 35,000.
I told you a great example when Ohio State played out there in 2008. The get-in ticket, I think, was $75.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think it was 75.
That's it.
Yeah,
even in 2008. That's wild.
But the next week when they were hosting, I think Washington State, USC, the get-in ticket was 45.
Yeah, well, so that makes sense.
So they knew Ohio State fans were coming to town. Yeah, Ohio State fans are the most taxed fans.
Oh yeah,
and they go for it.
When they went out to Cal Berkeley in 2013 for that trip, and obviously saw the way Ohio State fans showed up in that stadium because of that. Just not even. I know a lot of people traveled out west for that, but there's the fan base in that area, and certainly there's that in Southern California as well. There will be 25,000 Ohio State fans.
That was an interesting trip. I'm gonna tell all but the main thing is what you learned is that stadium's sitting pretty much on a fault line.
Yeah.
But hey, who isn't in California?
Very true.
You're either on a fault line or you will be. You know what I mean? When that thing starts cracking.
Just hope it doesn't start moving.
Yeah, exactly. Or don't come buying what is it? Don't come nah, forget it.
I have no idea.
Knocking. Don't come knocking if the stadium is a rocking.
There you go.
Yeah, go home. Seek shelter. No, don't stand under that building. Stand in the open.
Yeah.
Hope the crack doesn't find you. But talking about keeping up with the Joneses, being a Jones, right? Like Lukenbach, Texas. Being a Jones, Ohio State's dovetailing into my points. $125 million for an addition and some refurbishment and some expansion within the walls of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center is the target number. They've gotten pretty well down the road there. I was going to ask Ross to clarify, but I figured I already used up all my extra questions.
Yeah.
And by the way, could you clarify? But I think still you have to either have that money in hand or pledged before you can start construction at Ohio State. I think that's still the golden rule, pardon the pun, when it comes to anything like that. But like we're talking about, they're talking about expanding. You've been in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center many times. A few times we get to walk down those halls now because it's closed off to everybody. But dude, there are nicer places, maybe, but I mean,
solid.
Yeah. But the point is, there's not enough office space, as he pointed out, for everybody who already works there, much less who might end up working there. And I mean, there are guys, he was right. There are people working out of former closets in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And it's quite interesting. But like we were talking about the Cameron Indoor Stadium. Cameron, by the way, Duke has a tremendous practice facility for their basketball team.
I've never seen that. I believe that, of course.
I've seen pictures of it. I've meant to drive by there a million times, never have. But my point is, how nice a place do you have to have? I mean, they had a water wall. They had a water wall in the, I don't know if it's still in the locker room or not when they first, fixed it. Yeah, as I said to somebody, one of the players, I said, I hope that thing's chlorinated.
Yeah, right.
but how big does the weight room need to be? How nice do things, how much nicer can it be? I'm down at Clemson back when they're finishing about to finish their new
Yeah, they got the
facility way back
slide.
before they played Ohio State in 2016, and they had
Put the slide in there.
a slide.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I will say this for one. Most important thing is don't think that Waylon Jennings reference went unnoticed. I picked up
thank
on
you.
it. So
Waylon, Willie, and the boys.
Yes, Waylon, yeah. And then second of all, so I think I've said this for I don't know maybe 5 years now. I think more important than even like renovations to Ohio Stadium is that Ohio State needs to invest something into the Woody and get that renovated. I think facilities, obviously, as anybody knows, like when it comes to recruiting and things like that, facilities are a massive deal. I agree that the Woody's been solid. I never saw it before the most recent renovations, which was what? When was that? Like
I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember I was there when they broke ground for it in 1986.
Right. Yeah.
And Woody Hayes was one of the guys that turned the spade. And I walked up to him afterwards. I said, Coach Hayes, by the way, this is great. I said, but weren't you the guy that said if you're going to play in the North Atlantic, you got to train in the North Atlantic?
Right.
And he goes, yeah, he basically said that was yesterday. You got to be ahead. You got to be on top of things. You got to be ahead of things.
All the way back,
because the Biggs facility was way ahead of things. They had a weight room in there before almost any other Big Ten team, for example.
Sure.
Way back in the 60s and 70s. Go ahead now.
That's all the way back then, though. In 1986, the guy talking about that was then, this is now. It's changing now.
Yes.
I think about how that's, evolved.
Yes.
Now.
Anybody thinks Woody wouldn't have adapted?
Right. Exactly.
And embraced what's going on now. He always believed players weren't getting there what they were worth. Sure. I mean, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, and so anyways, I've always maintained, at least for a while now, as people talked about, well, the horseshoe needs this and that. I said, no, the first thing Ohio State needs to do is invest in the Woody and bring that up to, more modernization. I knew they're never going to just build a new facility. I knew that it was always going to stay within that.
Well, you can't just tear that thing down.
Right,
You've got to.
And so I was really glad to hear that $125 million project, as Ross said. But like a lot of it, as you kind of alluded to, is more about a practicality standpoint. He said, he used the example of if Tyler Bowen wants to have a private meeting with somebody in his room, and an offensive lineman wants to watch film, they can't do both at the same time. Somebody has to go elsewhere to do that, and so they just need more.
Yeah, but when they first opened it, the head coach had an office, big office, John Cooper.
Yeah,
and all the other assistants were in one big room.
Sure, yeah.
Again, cubicles.
Just a sign of the changing of time. So anyway, so a lot of it's a practicality
standpoint. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Their weight room is phenomenal. I don't think anybody will look at the weight room and say, okay, it needs upgraded, but I mean, you can
expansion, though. They want to make it bigger.
Always be upgraded, sure. They put in, just off the field, inside the indoor field, like there's like that basketball court in there and things like that. Like,
and a golf simulator.
Yeah, and a golf simulator. I could care less about those things. I know maybe to some people what matters. It doesn't matter to me. Like I never thought like Ohio State needs to upgrade the Woody because they need more of that. But I
asked Ryan, did he go to New Hampshire instead of Maine because golf simulator?
Right, yeah.
And he just smirked at me.
Right.
Go ahead, though.
So there was always there are things from a practicality standpoint that surely they could really afford to do. So I'm excited to hear that because again, in this arms race, so to speak, of recruiting now, obviously NIL matters, money matters, but facilities have always mattered in recruiting battles. And so, the better you can show off those things and wow people when they walk through the Woody on their official visits, certainly those things matter. And I thought that the Woody's fallen, well behind these other facilities. And again, you can say, does that stuff really matter? Do you need that stuff? Maybe not. But if others have them and you don't, it's going to matter.
You don't want that to be the delineator for
a
big time prospect. My point is though, you're getting top, even better than the NFL. The NFL doesn't have weight training situations like, and they do have them, but they don't have it like big time colleges do.
They don't even have 6 fields like Ohio State has to practice on.
Bingo.
Or whatever.
Yeah. But the point is, you don't, there are all kinds of facilities in college that even the NFL didn't even sniff at.
Right.
Because they're paying you to play. They expect you to be in shape. They have the workout facilities if you want to use them, but nobody's keeping roll.
Sure.
Maybe they are, but due to collective bargaining and all that kind of stuff, you can't necessarily enforce different things.
Yeah.
My point is, what they're lacking, and you pointed out, was they have a crunch from a space standpoint at Ohio State, have had for several years now because of the plethora of people that have been hired there that weren't there 10 years ago, much less 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And that's what they need. I've always thought about this. I was talking to one of the officials at Ohio State, like last year before half. We were talking about where the new facility, where they would expand to, and it might be around, for example, out into where the players parking lot is now.
Right.
It might be out into that area and or maybe around
the trophy lobby.
maybe around the one, they have those 2 grass outdoor fields that are really nice, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, they resided all those this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping to get some of that sod and put it bare spot in my backyard. But I digress. The bottom line is they have to reallocate the space necessarily from that. But I said, you know what you ought to do from a fundraising standpoint? What was that last stat we saw of how many of, for example, the worth of former Ohio State players, NFL contracts, something like $445 million or something, whatever it was.
I know what you're talking about.
I said, what you do is you start the trestle wing and the Meyer wing.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And
to the Woody Hayes, which is already there because he helped fundraise for that.
Yeah.
Now back then it didn't. I think it was might have been 20 million, 24 million. wasn't anything close to now.
No,
it might have been more than that, but it wasn't a whole lot. You just fundraise with them, man. I mean, that's an idea of where some cash could, because you can say where we've lost sight of in this unbelievable rush, this money rush, is what makes college football big time really is the legacy aspect of it. It's funny the team's reading that book about legacy.
The legacies,
it's a legacy and the traditions that were built that now you as a player, Jeremiah Smith might be the best player in college football this year, but he's playing at Ohio State. He's adding to the legacy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not creating it.
No,
He's not. My point is, you've already walked into like going to work for a big time company 20 years ago, IBM, Microsoft,
Enron,
already established, or DellGazette.com.
DellGazette.com, maybe.
But you've already established this, and you are literally you're helping them, but you're also benefiting from the largesse that's been created. So it always makes you wonder, how much does the university owe you, and how much do you owe the university in some respect?
Well, maybe Jeremiah Smith, because like the people that go to Ohio State and don't make a lot of NIL, that don't have a future in the pros, going to Ohio State and being a football player at Ohio State has a lasting impact on their lives once they get out of school.
Correct.
Whether it be the job market, whether it be the connections they made, the relationships they form. So it may be not even so much Jeremiah Smith, who's made a lot of money.
No, I was just using him as an example of a guy that's a big time player. Sure. But one of the attractions was it's Ohio State.
Yeah.
Along with what offense they're running.
Sure.
But now go ahead and finish your point. I mean, you're making the point I was going to make.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, like, what Ohio State means to, anybody that comes here from the well beyond just, the opportunity to go be a professional, whatever player, because of the platform you're going to be on and the resources that are invested in you while you're here. It goes well beyond,
and that's been built over time.
And that's
just like Alabama, just like Georgia.
That's tried and true. Like that's something that the infrastructure is in place and it continues to be. So like what you talk about, what does Jeremiah Smith owe Ohio State and what does Ohio State owe him? Jeremiah Smith only owes Ohio State, the effort to shepherd that legacy. Because I mean, he's only, like you said, a part of it. He's not the legacy.
Enhance it and shepherd it.
So, and so one thing, and I digress, but I'm going to say it. You talked about the Meyer wing and the Trestle wing. The ability for Ohio State to market those names and have those kind of names, or even all these former players you mentioned, the salary that these guys are making in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
That again just underscores like the haves and the have-nots, that Ohio State has that ability. At any time, some of these guys that are professional athletes that make a lot of money, whether it be in the NBA or certainly in the NFL, who want to come back and say, here, Ohio State, the $125 million Woody project, Ross alluded to the fact that they've already had some donations, some gifts made to support that. Who knows what those are? For all we know, it is NFL players who said, here's $10 million.
Yeah.
The ability for Ohio State or a handful of other programs to have that happen to them just underscores the fact that, like, there's always going to be an equity because they have the ability for people just to say, you know what, here's $10 million. I'm filthy rich. Here's $10 million. Go build something nice with it.
Yeah.
How many programs can
and 20 years from now, you bring your kids or your grandkids back and you show them, I helped win games here. Right. And I've also helped expand the program.
My name's on the building.
I've enhanced the program. And there are all kinds of ways you can go with that. I mean,
who's going to tell these guys they can't make that donation?
I just think it'd be cool to walk into like almost like an L or something. And you can go left to the Trestle wing. You can stay here in the Urban Meyer wing, or you can walk through there. to the Woody Wing, which was the original,
Sure.
which would, or maybe even I think most of Paul Brown's players are long gone.
Yeah. Well, hey, so now I ask you, what does Ryan Day have to do in the next 10 years to have a day wing at some point?
Well, I think that's coming, but that's down the road.
Yeah, sure.
I don't, just like Nick Saban, they put the statue up to him before he was even done there. Yeah. That's what they did with Joe Paterno, right? Mm-hmm. You know how that worked out.
Yeah.
I don't think you want anything from a statue or whatever standpoint done until you're done.
Until that legacy's set.
Yeah, until it's set. Yeah. We know A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right.
And you know how I feel about Ryan Day. I don't know, man. He's one of the more salt of the earth quality.
Yeah, that's
intense, but can still smile dudes I've ever run into. He is the modern day major college head football coach.
Yeah, I think so much of him
in a nutshell.
Hurt him
I mean, the stuff he's done from fundraising to getting the NIL thing straightened out, all that kind of stuff. When he stepped back and became a head coach instead of a glorified offensive coordinator, and I'm not saying that because he was working his butt off even then, but the leadership he's shown in different aspects.
Even away from football, him and Nina and the stuff.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, and even during COVID, we want to play, damn it.
Sure.
Right. I don't know if you said damn it, but we said we want to cover, damn it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not here to I'm not here to do Ryan Day's bidding, but he's a fantastic leader, man. I think there's no question about that.
Yeah.
And obviously at the end of the day, it's going to be about wins at Ohio State. It always will be.
Well, he's already got a national championship.
Yeah.
I think he's right now. I guess Kurt Cignetti would probably be the winningest coach in major college football right now from a percentage standpoint.
Sure.
Yeah. But
for anybody who's been somewhere for 5+ years, I mean, I forget. I saw somebody, on Twitter the other day, and I don't remember who it was. Not to say that, this is a unique opinion, but he said Ryan Day's just one more national title away from being the best coach in college football of this generation, of the post Saban generation.
I think we got an interesting season coming up in that respect. Number one, Ohio State's playing maybe the toughest schedule, at least on the top edge of anybody in the country.
Yeah.
There are people down south who are saying Kirby Smart, for some reason or another, may have kind of lost a little bit of an edge or not. Who knows? I mean, I think Kirby Smart's a hell of a football coach.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody can tell you this is clapping is a hell of a football and get away with it.
Right.
Is a hell of a football coach from a crafty standpoint. But there's no doubt what Kirby Smart has done at Georgia. It never been done in that realm that long.
To that level.
At that level is what he's done. So kudos to him. I'm not, and Vince Dooley, obviously with Herschel Walker and stuff, won the national championship way back when. But yeah, I mean, Ryan's right up there in the conversation. Everybody keeps bringing Steve Sarkisian up, but he hasn't done.
No,
he hasn't done it yet. Let's put it that way, right?
Sark's an underwhelming season this year away from being kind of that guy that people start talking about.
Being Mac Brown. I mean,
right.
Mac Brown without that national championship might have been gone a year or two before he got gone.
Dan Lanning's kind of in that conversation now.
Yes.
People are going to get tired of talking about Steve Sarkisian and Dan Lanning if they don't produce something this year, and certainly Sarkisian for that matter.
And who's the other guy at USC?
And Lincoln Riley's in his whole another class because, I mean, that guy.
But dude, you just delete. I mean, that's part of the schedule for Ohio State.
Right.
They're not just going against teams that are big time this year. They're going against coaches that need big wins.
Yeah. Desperate to have, and I think, well, look, I've been on record as saying, I'm not going to say they are, but Ohio State losing 3 games this year would not shock me at all. I still think an Ohio State team losing 3 games gets into the playoff. So I'm not saying they missed the playoffs, but Ohio State
it depends on which ones do they lose and by how much.
Well, sure, and there's obviously 5 games you could look at.
I think Ohio State will be favored. Well, maybe not at Texas because Texas has got their quarterback.
Yeah,
but Ohio State has its quarterback back who was better overall last year than Texas's quarterback. I'm not knocking Arch Manning. He is who he is. And he can't help who he is.
Well, and to think that he can't get better this year. I hear some Ohio State fans talk about Julian saying as if he couldn't get better this offseason. He's going to be better. He better be. And Arch Manning's going to be better than he was last year. However better, I don't know. But
what bothered me about Arch Manning watching him play last year, especially early, it looked like he didn't know what he was looking at.
Sure.
A lot of times in the passing game. Well, that seemed to get better as the year went on. I'm not sure, but what was that a function of? Was it coaching? Was it whatever?
But
with you in saying, I mean, if right guard, I keep saying this, if they figured out right guard, this is going to be a hell of an offense.
I agree. When I say that I think that there's a possibility to lose 3 games, I'm not saying they will lose 3 games because I could very easily see them.
I didn't poo-poo what you said.
No. I just want to clarify for anybody looking. I can feel the anger already from Ohio State fans listening to this and saying, "Well, this dumb son of a gun, says the Buckeyes are going to go 9-3." And I'm not saying that they will. I'm saying that if you look at the 5 games, obviously Texas, Oregon, and this is not in order: Texas, Oregon, Indiana, USC, and Michigan.
Yeah.
Those 5
Don't
games.
forget Iowa.
Yeah, well, and we're not even talking about trips to Iowa, which probably end up being a night game somehow. And I won't include the trip to Lincoln.
That's spooky, man.
Sure, well.
Just ask Urban.
Ohio State's last trip there, I was in the stands for that. My dad and I made that trip out there.
So no kidding. So you had a good time, especially after that early interception.
My dad wanted to leave in the third quarter, and I've told my dad, I said, we have never left a football game in the third quarter in our lives, and I'm not doing it. Even though it's over, I am not leaving until the scoreboard says the fourth quarter.
If I had to pick out a game that personifies, because there were people out there doing it.
Yeah.
That personifies the Tim May slogan, nobody covers the tight end.
Yeah.
At least consistently at any level of football. That would have been the game. That'd be the game I'd run the highlights of behind while I'm giving my speech.
And he was a good tight end. It's not like he under
the
radar.
Two
good ones, but one really good one.
Fant.
Noah Fant. So anyways, that game was wild. But so anyways, when I say they could go 9-3, I don't mean that as they will but it's just when you look at it, it's really tough. And I think people who think Ohio State's going to be more talented than USC when they go out to LA without question. But USC has a quarterback who can get hot, and certainly an offensive-minded staff that that can scheme up some stuff. So I think Ohio State's defense is going to be fine. But USC, when you have a quarterback, you have a chance. Ohio State making that long trip out there, for that game, it's going to be a night game, and so that's a very losable game. Even though Ohio State on paper right now is better than USC, so 3 losses certainly not off the table. Going 11-1. 12-0 would really surprise me, but I think Ohio State's going to be really good this year. It's just this schedule is, man, it's the real deal. It's probably the hardest schedule I can maybe in my lifetime as an Ohio State.
You know what I don't like about the Coliseum? It's laid out east-west. Washington Stadium is laid out east-west. I don't like those. That when that slogan came up about running the football go north-south.
Yeah, right.
Because back in the good old days, football fields were pretty much laid out north-south.
Why is that?
Just because somebody decided that's the way to do it, and you copycat. And then the next thing you know, most stadiums are laid out, some relatively speaking, northish, southish.
I thought maybe because the sun would always be over top of the grass. To help
I think, no. The other thing is, so the sun isn't in anybody's eyes.
That's true, yeah.
And the thing about it, I remember asking Coach Trussell back in 2008 whether they practiced for the idea. Because if it's a night game, that wasn't a night game. I don't remember. I think it was a late afternoon game. I'm talking about the TV window back here. I may be wrong. I've been a night game, but whether you practice for the fact that the sun's going to be in your eyes, if you're when you're going west to east, the sun's going to be in your eyes
because of the game out in LA.
Yeah, in LA. Yeah. Now, with that said, we all know in late October and November. Right. The sun could be in your eyes for the same reason because the sun gets low in the sky.
Yeah, that was a 7 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah,
locally.
Another little interesting fact is that factoid is that like Bryant Denny Stadium used to be just Denny Stadium when I went to games there. Bear Bryant always had Alabama was on what a lot of people call the visitor side, the side opposite the press box, the east side of the stadium, and same thing at Legion Field. You know why?
Why?
So that when photographers who all got on the west side, so the sun would be lighting up. They would be. He'd be in the background of a lot of the pictures.
Yeah. Smart. Hey,
you got to sell the program, baby.
That's
I thought that was very smart.
That's just good business, right?
That's why he was always, that's probably what reason he wore the hat in the first place. But he'd be holding his game plan up, But I digress. Hey, what were the other things that we're going to touch on before we go here? So we only got like a couple minutes.
Yeah, we talked about the Woody. We talked in general about just the landscape of the Ross touched on. I think one of the things that, we were going to talk about the Ohio Stadium thing. I did ask about this, and just because I know people care about it, and certainly in light of the news today that Arkansas has added naming rights to their stadium.
Yes.
I think Ohio State fans will be somewhat pleased to announce or to hear that. I asked Ross Bjork, where that falls into the whole idea of driving additional revenue, and certainly paying for all these renovations that are coming to Ohio State, which we actually have to talk about the renovations he talked about as well. Anyways, and he said that while everything is still technically on the table, it's not anywhere in the forefront of what Ohio State's considering right now, and there's a lot of hoops they have to jump through to do that because it's a state-owned building, or a facility.
It's a national historic building.
Yeah,
I think not landmark, but historic building.
Whatever. Yeah. So there's a lot of hoops that Ohio State would have to jump. So that doesn't sound like that's anything that's imminent at all. Now, he mentioned that.
Well, they're already putting in those suites. The ground level suites on the south end.
And he talked about, I know this is probably the number one thing. As somebody who grew up in the Horseshoe, I'm well aware of it. He talked about improved bathrooms, which I is probably the number.
It's almost the campaign that a senator would run on.
Right.
And we will improve the bathrooms at Ohio Stadium.
Exactly.
Every 6 years you say the same thing.
So the big scoreboard in the south end zone, that's getting replaced in short order. So that was a big one.
Let me tell you something. I don't think there's absolutely anything wrong for 6-7 games a year by having rows of porta potties, because the worst thing is having to wait.
Yeah, I agree. And it might, in theory, people might hate it, but certainly anybody who's the game experience and is there would gladly take not having to wait to go to the bathroom over the unsightliness of having rows of porta potties.
Yes.
Now, again, as Ross sit here and talks about, the mapping out the future of Ohio Stadium, and he talked about 50, 75, 100 years, 100 more years of Ohio Stadium. If you're going to do that, then invest in the dang bathrooms and figure that situation out. You just have to.
But dude, this is the thing. I was going, like I said, I'd already used up my Trump cards.
Sure. Yeah.
That's maybe that's a wrong term there.
Yeah.
I'd already used up my cards. But one of the things you shout out is, how long does it become an exercise in diminishing returns in terms of how much you're spending to keep the building what it is?
Yeah.
And as opposed to putting that into a new facility. I know that's blasphemy.
Well,
that is blasphemy, except it's a concrete and steel structure.
You asked the right person.
It's not like going in and knocking down 2x4s and drywall and rearranging, and putting a new support beam here and stuff. I mean, these are expensive. Just like refurbishing the Woody's going to be expensive because they're going to be knocking down walls.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I asked Andy Geiger that, though, he goes, I said, when they were working toward refurbishing or expanding it, basically in the late 90s, and they did it, made the sides higher, D-deck, et cetera, and a lot of other things. I said, why not? Why wouldn't you just think about maybe building a new stadium at Kinney and Lane Avenue? The northwest corner there. There's a big, and he goes, people don't understand really the size of the footprint of this facility. And then on top of that, he said it would cost what? He said maybe half $500 million to replicate that.
Yeah.
Right on the start, much less.
Yeah.
But it would be a modern facility. But that we're going back to what we were talking about the legacy and the tradition of this place.
Yeah.
That's college football.
Exactly.
It's going to Bryant-Denny. It's going to Ohio State. It's going to Michigan Stadium.
Yeah.
Or
DKR.
Or as Ross called them, our friends up north.
Friends up north, right? Yeah.
It's going to the place where the 10-10 tie was back in '66. Michigan State. It's going to Notre Dame. Yeah, these have all been added on to, but the core is still there. Go ahead.
Well, no, you asked me, and I'm always willing to partake in this conversation when people suggest or just pose a question. I never really come across anybody who would really want to see that happen, but when they pose a question, look, I'm a big Red Sox fan. I watched what John Henry and that ownership that now Fenway Sports Group did to invest in Fenway Park when there was a lot of talk about it's at the end of its life.
Yep.
It's 10 years older than the Horseshoe. It was in 1912. Horseshoe's built in 1922. So it's 10 years older than the Horseshoe.
Yep.
There's a lot of talk, at the turn of the century or millennium about tearing it down. It's time to for the Red Sox to enter in the more modern age and build a new stadium. And
every century build a new stadium.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. But they said no way. Yeah. The investments they did, obviously putting the monster seats up, where it was a big part of that.
Yep.
Not just investing in Fenway Park, but the area around it as well. And they continue to do that now and make that more modern to help with the viability of bringing people in there and all those things. There are ways to do it. And so in no way would I ever support or actually think Ohio State would ever consider that, nor should they. Like you said, it's part of what makes, I want to say it's part of what makes college sports so special. But then again, the landscape of college sports, like we're losing more and more of that every day. So it's kind of hard to justify it with that reason, because you could say like, well, yeah, you're right. That makes college sports special. And so did this, and this, and that's all fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
And I would agree with people who say that. But, just the idea of like it being right there on the banks of the Olentangy River, right there, having St. John, which I know maybe St. John's not going to be around forever, but having that just, just north of it, that whole area, it just, there's just no way.
Okay. I mean, and the great thing about Ohio Stadium too, when you walk through the bowels, as you call it, of stadiums, you can still see the old arches.
Yeah, sure.
Underneath.
Yep.
You can see where the stadium footprint was and how much bigger it got when they did the expansions.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I really think they need to have some kind of like Hall of Fame, Walk of Fame thing inside there. They give tours.
Sure.
Yeah, you can pay to get a tour of the place and stuff, which is cool. But I'm telling you, I'm gonna make one more point. They need that pantheon, the pantheon of the head coaches, et cetera, of statue wise. When you'd walk from Woody Hayes Drive
up to the rotunda.
The rotunda.
Yeah, I agree.
The statues of the coaches who've won national championships. Yeah, I put Ryan Days up there.
Heisman
but
winners.
Also Heisman winners. Yeah. Some of the greatest players I've ever seen in Orlando Pace, who won every award except the Heisman almost.
Sure.
Right on down the line. They need to be, for one of another term, immortalized in some form or fashion there. Like just a walk of fame, man. It would be so unbelievable. And it would cost a little bit from an outlay standpoint, but then, they could move Woody's statue there.
Yeah. No,
I mean, for example, so you got a heads up, they could put Jesse Owens' statue there. That's where he ran track.
I was just about to say, they need to do, first of all,
you don't have to have the original track there to know that Jesse Owens ran track
They need to do something better with the Jesse Owens Memorial. Most people I've talked to, like, say like I was meeting friends before a game or something like that, like, well, we'll meet at the Jesse Owens Memorial. Like, what are you talking about? They don't even know what that is.
Correct.
So, so they need to do something better with that. And I entirely agree with you. Like, that's when you start that walk from Woody Hayes Drive up to the rotunda of Ohio Stadium, that's just not aligned with the people who've made the program so special. It's just asinine to me. And
they've got that one. They've got that one not sculpture, artwork right in the middle. That's like these things, and I forgot what they symbolize, but I'm just going, that don't cut it.
That's the Jesse Owens Memorial.
You got Archie. You got Archie Griffin's.
I think. Anyways.
You got Archie Griffin's statue there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just to add to it.
Right.
Maybe the Rose Bowl will get a few more, and they'll get another free statue, and they can put it up there.
Bing.
Yeah, but no, I mean, you've already started it, so now finish it.
Yeah.
Only two-time Heisman winner.
Agree.
Orlando Pace, Jim Stillwagon. I mean, there are these guys.
Oh, heck, you could go down the line. I mean, we could.
Oh no,
we could do this for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to do that to you. But my point is, there are these people. I mean,
Chick Harley.
You've been to Oklahoma. They've got all their Heisman winners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool as hell.
Yeah. Well, and just like
Chick Harley, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're going to start at Woody Hayes, like it should start there as you're going to.
Well, the house that Harley built, you got to start with the guy that built it.
So, anyways, so we could talk about that and that may be part of the problem is you do have a finite space and there's so many names. Like,
but that's a long walk.
True. And who's to say that it can't go around the stadium too? Like, because
correct, like Oklahoma.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean,
give us a call, Ross.
Alabama's got the national championship winning coaches statues on the north end as you walk into the stadium from Denny Chimes across, and I think it's pretty cool. I think anytime you just
is Mike Shula's statue out there.
I said guys who won national championships,
my fault.
Not guys who they couldn't wait to get rid of to get a guy who could win a national championship.
Yeah.
But I digress. The bottom line is, man, I appreciate you joining me again. I know I left out a couple of points we wanted to hit on, but we've already gone way over our allotted time here with our fans.
There was a lot to talk about today.
I was taking a poll the other day because I know I keep running into people who are watching this, and just out of the blue they tell me they're watching it. But I said, what's a good time for you? Maybe is it an hour too long? Is 30 minutes too short? And this guy at Costco the other day was telling me that plug there. This guy at Costco the other day was telling me he thinks at least 45 minutes. And I go, well, sometimes 45 minutes is quality. Sometimes but my point is, once you get into conversation with somebody like you, you know how we play golf together.
Yeah.
We shoot the bull about Ohio with your dad,
and
Cliff.
Passes and
Cliff Davis. We shoot the bull with him and your erstwhile younger brother,
Rylan. Yep.
But we shoot the bull about this all the time. Same stuff we're talking about, right?
That's what we are at the end of the day. We're sports fans who have
Yeah.
a vested interest in all
Yeah.
the stuff that's happening.
But
So,
I mean, how, you don't want to you don't want to have people have to invest an hour, but
No.
you can always come back I'm hitting on maybe 45 minutes to 50 minutes might be what do you think?
I think
you watch some of these things.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. And I've been a part of a lot of different ones. And
Yeah.
so I think without a doubt, anything less than 45 minutes, I just feel like you can't even really have conversations
Get the
about a whole
engine
lot of
warmed
things.
up. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than listening to a podcast.
Nobody wants to watch the Indy 350.
Right, exactly. And there's nothing worse than you talk, you're going to watch this podcast and say, we're going to talk about this, this, and this. And they talk about it for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah. And then I forget what I was telling you we were going to talk
about conversations that are so nuanced that like it would probably take 35 minutes to cover it all, and you talk about it for 5 minutes. So I think 45 minutes for sure, but I think an hour, absolutely. For me, if there's something I care about, certainly college football is up there about as much I care about anything. If it's an hour's worth of good conversation, certainly on days like today where we met with Ross Bjork and he had a lot to share and say, absolutely, I think an hour is solid.
All right, last question. Give me 20 seconds on it.
Yes.
I thought Gene Smith, when he came along, was the right guy at the right time. And boy, did he have a lot of guys come out of his program that went other places, like Pat Chun. I mean, love Pat Chun, what he's done in his career, et cetera. Ross Bjork, you remember how Texas A&M embraced collectives, et cetera, as soon as the ink was, I don't know if there was ever any ink, but as soon as the ink was dry on NIL and stuff, they jumped at it, even drew the ire of Nick Saban, if you remember correctly.
Sure.
I just think.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're almost done.
I just think Ross Bjork, by far, I think I don't know how this happened. He's the right guy at the right time.
I don't think this was by accident because I think.
Well, it wasn't by accident. I mean,
Well, I mean, I knew they were going to. I mean, I guess not that by accident they hired a guy competent in his job, but I think just the business aspect and the business savvy of Ross Bjork at a time where it's like there's so much business going on. I think like when you say it's the perfect guy at the perfect time, I think that's wise because he seems so business savvy and so cerebral when it comes to all these different things
and forward thinking.
Right, and a lot of people poo-pooed the hire. When I would say a lot of people, but like when Ross Bjork was first hired, people looked at the Jimbo Fisher hire, which obviously was.
Well, I brought that question up. That wasn't a hire. It was the settlement.
Yeah,
they had to pay out. But the thing is, those same people who wanted Ross to give him that extension after whatever that season was were the same people that were calling for his head 2 years later.
Exactly.
So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I have good friends who went to Texas A&M. I know all about Texas A&M.
That's the price of doing business. And guess what? Hey, they fell on their face on that, and so be it. But just in general, his track record at Texas A&M of being out in the forefront and getting ahead of some of these things, very good for what they saw, they being Ohio State saw coming on the horizon, and what certainly we're in the midst of right now, and going to be in the midst of for quite a while still. Without a doubt, brought the right kind of person in to do this job, and as we all know, it takes a special kind of person to do this job. Period. At a place like Ohio State. Yeah. But certainly in this era of college sports, a whole different kind of person, and I think that they absolutely did well to do that. I think Ross is doing a fantastic job, and I think any Ohio State fan would, or should have, just a complete confidence in Ross Bjork that he's going to continue to operate within the best interest of Ohio State, and in doing so, will lead Ohio State to a good place, wherever we're heading with all this stuff.
But like he just said today, and we'll move on. Like he just said today, and I'm paraphrasing. Hey, you know what? We've been talking about this expansion, whatever, for the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, for example.
Yeah. It's time to go.
Time now to go.
Yes.
How many years are you going to talk about
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what he said.
That's what he's about. Yeah. I mean, you especially at State University, you got to get a coalition. You got to get a consensus on where you're going and stuff. And then you got to collect the cash to make it happen. But like he said, enough talking about it. Another year has gone by.
That's an excellent point.
I mean, I heard these plans 2 or 3 years ago about what the plan would be.
There were whispers 4 or 5 years ago about hey, this is something that has to happen. What's it going to look like? And then
but anyway, so that's a great example of who's running the athletic department ship at Ohio State right now. Right man at the right time. Right Bjork at the right time. I guess what I'm saying. Hey, Dillon Davis, is it Double Dog Dare you? What's my nickname for you?
Double Down. It changes by the week. It's kind of like the NIL landscape in college football and everything. It just changes.
Triple Dog Dare you.
Oh. He bypassed
it. Double down with Dillon Davis. Double down with Double D, I think is what it goes by. But appreciate you. DellGazette.com. Check it out. He writes stories. He posts stuff on Twitter. They get great retweets, etc. And he's one of my friends. And And yeah, he's a better golfer than me. But you know what, dude? I get 4 or 5 holes around where I play like almost a professional.
You just got to lock in because I can see it. I see it every time we play, but you don't lock in.
I hit a drive the other day at Scarlet. It was maybe the best drive I've ever hit in my life.
Tell me about that.
I engaged it. Oh, we'll do it off camera, but you know that Q35i I've got. You got to swing that thing to make it happen. Mm-hmm. It's not for slappers.
Yeah, no, you have to have some swing speed there.
I got a couple of swings in the other day. I'm just going, that's been my hell bent now. I mean, 3-wood, 5-wood, hybrid driver. I'm swinging those things now. I'm seeing, I'm 72. Why not, right?
Sure.
Anyway, then I'll have back problems. I'll be sitting here with my walker and my cane. Ladies and gentlemen, Dillon Davis, Double Dog Dare You, Dillon Davis. I'm Tim May. Until next time, we'll see you then.